Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, one of the things that's really tricky about farming is trying to figure out what's the best time exactly to buy different inputs. We're going to talk about that on today's program.
We're also going to discuss desiccation, that is killing off the crop before the exact end of the season. We're going to explain a little bit what this is and whether or not you need to do this on your farm.
That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? But one thing that doesn't sound weird at all is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed. But first, here's our farm basics.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the system that makes the difference, because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
During our farm basics time today, we're going to talk about what is a root pit.
Well, when we think about what's going on in our fields, most times that I talk to farmers, I say, well, how's your corn looking? Oh, they'll start describing the leaves and everything above ground. Or how are your soybeans looking? Well, they have this many pods and this many branches and they're at this growth stage and all that. But I really have to come back with a follow-up question. What does it look like below ground? And if I get a blank stare, that makes me nervous. And if it does for you too, it's probably because you've been digging. And once you start digging underneath your plants, what you're going to find is a lot of times the issues you're seeing above ground relate to what's going on below ground. And that's why I want to talk about digging out the soil to see what that full root system looks like.
So if you're a non-farmer, you just drive past fields and you don't know what's going on below that field. But what we always say is as much mass as there is above ground, there should be that much mass below ground. So just think about this enormous corn plant. Well, it should have that many roots too. Well, we want to find out where those roots are at. And in a wet year like this year, like right now even, it's raining on us. Well, when we have wet years, that means usually the water table is really high and roots can't grow into a water table. So at this point of the year, then a farmer can go out and dig down into that soil and just see how deep the roots got. Now, the maximum size of a corn root will be set at about tassel. So we're not there yet, obviously, in the field we're standing in today, but it won't be long. In about 2 or 3 weeks in this particular field, it'll be the maximum size for the corn root. That's when we want to go out and dig that root pit and we really can see what's going on below ground.
And this really holds true with about any crop. Brian mentioned, hey, if you don't have fields, but you have a lawn and you've got a brown area out in your lawn, do some digging, see what's going on. Do you have a fungus that's impacting your root growth? Do you have some insects that are out there? The same kinds of things will hold true whether you're in a field of corn or in your lawn.
Just to give you a quick story, one of the very first root pits we ever dug, this is probably 25 years ago now, we dig down about 4 feet and it was pretty wide. It was probably 8 feet, 10 feet wide. The very next morning we went out there was water standing at the bottom of the hole. Our corn was dying above ground because it was short of moisture, and you could see the corn roots, you know, they were okay, but they were all in that top about 8 inches. You got down to about 2-3 feet, and then we had all kinds of moisture. So I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but even I can figure out that visual. It's like, hey, I got to connect my roots here to the water down below. We had a major compaction issue. We did everything we could to resolve that problem after we saw it in the root pit.
All right, we're standing on the edge of a field. A lot of times there are some issues on the edge that aren't going to be the case out in the middle of the field.
Right.
So we would suggest that you dig that root pit into the field just a little ways. But Brian, what about breaking off these corn plants?
Well, the first root pit we ever dug, our dad, it was on one of his fields, and he was all worried about, oh, you ran down a whole bunch of corn to get out to this. And I said, Dad, how many corn plants do we knock over? 500? Okay, here's $5. That's all your 500 corn plants are worth. Now, in today's dollars, they might be worth that 500 plants, maybe $15, $10 to $15. That's it. That's all the corn plants are worth. So what if you run down 500 corn plants? It's no big deal. You want to get an education for the few plants that you've knocked over.
Well, we strongly encourage you to do some digging with whatever you're trying to grow and see what's happening below ground. We're talking about a root pit today where we're digging down 4 feet deep. along our corn plants just to see what that root system looks like. It may not have to be a 4-foot pit for you, but you do need to find out if you want to explain what's happening above ground as well. One other thing that you may see as you're out there digging is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Tough, precise, efficient. Strip tillage with the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm. Learn more at soilwarrior.com/agphd.
Take a look inside any rotary combine, and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
At Estes Performance Concaves, we know how valuable your time is at harvest. That's why we designed the new XPR concave system. The XPR system is the #1 performance concave system on the market, surpassing the rest in both speed and efficiency, ensuring every last grain from your field gets into your tank. Plus, XPR concaves work for all row crops. No more changing concaves, meaning you have less downtime. Take back your bushels this harvest. Get Estes Performance Concaves in your combine today.
The Guardian Air Twin Spray Nozzle from Hypro produces a twin spray pattern with air inducted droplets for superior coverage, even in dense canopies. Be effective and efficient with your spray application this season with the Guardian Air Twin. Hypro, helping you spray better.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
When is the best time to buy your propane, your fertilizer, your crop protection products, even your seed for next year? Well, today that's what we're going to talk about, is the timing on these purchases.
Unfortunately, the timing is not normally, hey, right when I want to use it, it's going to be at the lowest price of the year. I mean, think about that winter coat that you've got. Did you buy it in the winter or did you buy it early on? If you bought it in the summer, chances are you got a good deal on it. And if you bought your lawnmower in the winter, you probably got your best deal on that, right? Because it's all about, well, when do people need it? And if everybody's trying to buy it, well, then the price is generally the highest. And when nobody wants to buy it, that's oftentimes when the price is lowest. So think about all the things that you're using on your farm. When is the time of year that nobody's buying?
Here's the other thing. When crop prices go up, then a lot of these input costs go up. When crop prices go down, a lot of the input costs go down. Okay, so when you ask yourself, how is this year's crop? How about acres planted? What kind of yield are we going to have in the fall? So if you try to do what the government does and predict acreage, yield, overall supply, demand, all those things, here's where I'm going with this. For me, I think commodity prices are going to continue to go up, and I'm almost 100% certain of that. Okay, so if I feel that personally, then I want to go ahead and start buying things now before I believe they're going to run up in the future.
Here's the other thing. What are you doing with your grain for next year? Are you locking in all those prices? If you are, you probably want to think about locking in some costs too. And I know when you're excited about, wow, we had a good little move in the market and I want to take advantage of that and reward that market by selling some grain, that's cool. But you also got to lock in those costs too, because you want to lock in a profit margin, or at least as much as you can. Now I get it. You're not locking in 100% of your crop and you're not locking in 100% of your inputs. But if you're locking in 25% of your crop, it might not be a bad idea to start thinking, you know, nitrogen's a pretty big component here for me in my corn production. I'm going to lock some of those prices in too, because if the market starts moving, like Brian mentioned, it won't be long and the nitrogen market will be up higher too.
Okay, so let's talk about the logic of each of these decisions. With propane, as soon as I saw all the late planting in the spring, I started buying propane, and I would say if you haven't already and you go, boy, I'm gonna have some wet corn this fall, it's probably a good idea to be buying propane. My belief, and we could certainly be wrong, I don't know, but I'm just speculating that by fall, with all the wet corn, there's gonna be propane prices are gonna be higher. Darren, talk to us about seed. When are the first seed discounts available from the seed companies?
You know, oftentimes those first seed discounts may come as early as August, but a lot of times it's September and October, so be prepared. Talk with your seed provider, look for any opportunities. Here's the other thing. When we had trouble getting our crops in, guess what happened with seed production? Very much the same thing. They had trouble getting in on some of those acres. Who knows what yield is going to be in some of these seed production fields? There may be some shortages, especially in the new products. And if you've got new products that you say, wow, this one's a whole new level of Gauss's wilt tolerance, or this one's a whole new level of yield that I've never seen before, lock those things in as early as you can to make sure you get supply and the best price.
All right, when it comes to fertilizer, it's really hard to know if now is going to be the best time versus the spring. But for me, I would like to get my fertilizer applied in the fall. So really the question for me is just, am I going to buy now or am I going to buy right in the fall? Well, I strongly believe that we are going to see higher crop prices. So over the last 10, 15 years, fertilizer prices have followed crop prices. So we're trying to buy fertilizer right now to get ahead of that.
When it comes to crop protection products, there's a few things at play here. One is that some of the major crop protection companies have a year end at August 31st, and they may have some incentive to get some additional sales in this year because there are a lot of unplanted acres that didn't get that crop protection that they had forecast, and certainly those big companies like to meet their goals. So there may be some deals at the end of the summer. If not, generally September is a great time to start buying some of your major inputs as it begins a brand new calendar year, and those companies like to get some sales on the books.
One of the things you may not have heard about is there was an enormous plant explosion in China back a few months ago. Well, because of that, the Chinese government shut down a lot of plants in that area, and there are some products that are going to be in shorter supply going forward, at least for the next probably 8 to 12 months. Because of that, we don't see crop protection prices coming down on a number of items. Now, there are a few things that could come down. Glyphosate may be one of them that might come down just slightly. So if it was me, I would say, you know, I might buy some stuff in July and August, but what I'm probably going to do is wait until September. And the reason why we want to wait until September is because usually with the big companies, that's when they have their fill programs, that's when they have their deals for retailers, where literally they can buy in September and get next year's terms. So with prepaid discounts, that brings it back to a lower price than what you can usually buy it for in July and August. So that would be my suggestion, is I'd really be taking a hard look at buying your crop protection products in September this year.
Well, as you can see, the times to buy certain things for the farm may vary just a little bit, but generally from year to year, they're pretty stable. And if you think about these things, mark them down on your calendar, start talking with your dealers and get into those patterns of buying when the prices are a little bit lower. It can do nothing but help you on the bottom line. Well, one other thing that'll definitely help your bottom line is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop it later in the show.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
In 1949, Morton Buildings constructed our first machine storage building to establish our bond with the farming community. Since then, our relationship has grown, and so have our product offerings. From the smallest specialized operation to the largest agricultural enterprise, we understand the needs of your business and continue to evolve to meet industry demands. Plus, when you build a Morton building, you're backed by the strongest warranty in the business. To learn more about the Morton Advantage, visit mortonbuildings.com.
I need results, so I choose the one system I trust to take weeds down and keep them down on even my toughest acres with the kind of yield potential that helps keep me in the black to deliver my kind of results season after season. I choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system. I choose results.
I've been completely satisfied with the job that XtendiMax has done.
It's a good product. It kills the weeds.
I'm extremely happy with my weed control. We're going 100% Extend next year as well.
This might be the best overall farm average on soybeans I'll have.
It works so much better than anything else that we used in the past.
It's been remarkable. We have seen a tremendous yield potential increase.
The XtendiMax takes the weeds down.
It just flat out works.
Your planter is the single most important piece of equipment on your farm, because without a uniform stand, you can't reach maximum yield. That's why Harvest International set out to design a planter that takes advantage of the newest innovations in planter technology. Built tough for high speed and integrated with the latest precision enhancements, Harvest International planters ensure every seed you plant today puts more in your bin at harvest. Harvest International, planting the future.
Desiccation is the process of spraying a herbicide on a crop before that crop has reached the point where you could harvest it. So basically, if you look out in a field and you see some green areas out in the field, a lot of times people will say, boy, I wish I could get a frost to kill that off. Well, you can also do it with this process of desiccation. There's some crops, like sunflowers, for example, where desiccation is real common. There are other crops, like corn, where desiccation is not very common. So today we wanted to talk just a little bit about when to desiccate and what to use.
Okay, there's a few things here at play. One is weed control, and this year there's going to be a lot of fields that have problems with weeds. Why? Well, we had a wet spring. Like, let's take the case of many wheat fields across the country this year. Guys just couldn't get in there. It just kept raining and raining and raining, and it was really tough to even get out in the fields and make those applications. All of a sudden, you're past the time where you can really do anything to control it. We had a lot of guys saying, man, I'm already past flag leaf here, and I still haven't got my weed control on. What can I do? Well, for many of those farmers, a desiccation was going to be the option of, you know what, just before harvest, I'm going to go.
Now, I don't look at that as desiccation at all. So how I view that is that's just simply a pre-harvest burn down. What I view as desiccation is, hey, we're doing something with the crop. The pre-harvest burn down is something to do with the weeds. But to Darren's point here, it really doesn't matter because you're faced with the exact same thing. The crop has to reach a certain stage so we don't hurt the crop anymore, and we also have to beat the pre-harvest interval.
Well, there are two things here too, Brian. When you say we don't hurt the crop, we don't want to hurt yield, but also we're looking at quality. And if you're thinking about, well, this is going to be a seed production field of wheat, that pre-harvest burn down or desiccation, however you want to look at that, has a tendency to hurt the germination on that seed. Now, it does nothing to hurt the feed quality or whatnot. Your wheat's still going to be fine, but it could hurt the germination enough that you may want to save a different field for seed. Now, in terms of preserving yield, what we normally will look at is we want to get under 30% moisture in our wheat crop. And generally, if you're going out there, just a thumbnail test is something many farmers will do. Press your thumbnail into the side of the kernel. If that thumbnail remains, you're in a good spot for desiccation, but I would strongly recommend take some in, do a little moisture testing and see where you're at. If you're under 30, now it's something where you can go in and do that pre-harvest burn down.
Now, I mentioned just a little bit earlier, it gets late in the season and a lot of farmers will tell me, boy, Brian, I wish we'd get a frost now to even everything up so I can go out and harvest. Or maybe I should go do a desiccation. And I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. What I've always found is the later the frost is, the more yield we end up with. Because very often we have spots in fields that are still reaching maturity. They're not there yet. We want to give them as much time as possible. And I realize this makes it really challenging when you want to get out and harvest. We on our own farms sometimes will go out and leave some of those green areas in the field and come back a couple weeks later and get them. So what Darren said there, getting under 30% moisture as a general statement, like for wheat, for example, is a good idea, but there are a lot of different crops you can desiccate. And the number one thing that I wanted to tell you today is use desiccation methods with great care, because if you go out even just a day or two early, it absolutely can and will hurt yield, and it does often hurt grain quality and test weight as well.
Well, here you go, Brian. You get another challenge where guys have lots of acres and they say, you know what, I'm going to desiccate this field, then a couple days later I'm going to do another field, and that way I can kind of space out what my harvest is going to be and start scheduling when I'm going to have combines hitting those fields. There are so many different reasons why you may consider doing a desiccation. The big thing here is you want a product that's going to do what you need. Like, let's take, for example, when we're talking about wheat, if you've got some Canada thistle out there, you probably want to use Roundup. Well, you've got to time that out right because you need at least 7 days before harvest. And you're going to use a pretty strong rate of Roundup. It's going to do a good job getting down into the root system of Canada thistle, but it's not going to kill everything off super quick like something like Gramoxone could do. Now, if you need that fast browning of the field, Gramoxone is generally a product that many farmers choose.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You've got to look at the label and make sure that Roundup is approved, or Gramoxone, or Sharpen, or Valor. I mean, there are a lot of different products that can be used for desiccation. So check the label, check the pre-harvest interval, check what they say for what the right timing is on that application. But what Darren said there is super important. With Gramoxone, it burns very quickly. Roundup is the slowest of these desiccation or pre-harvest burn down products. So very different products, just depends on what you need.
So to sum things up, if you're looking for something to do desiccation, our preferred products are generally Gramoxone or Sharpen. Sharpen's going to leave you some soil residual where Gramoxone leaves none. And then if we're looking at a pre-harvest burn down, typically we're using Roundup.
Well, all those products will control weeds, but will they stop our Weed of the Week? We'll tell you coming up right after this.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our Weed of the Week is Volunteer Alfalfa.
When I think about killing off alfalfa intentionally, and volunteer alfalfa would certainly be something we want to kill, I'd normally like to use Roundup brand, but it doesn't work in all situations now with Roundup Ready alfalfa in some fields.
Right, that's the thing. And the reason why we're talking about it today is you want to get it controlled here sometime early this fall. Now, what the old saying is you have to wait until late in the fall. Well, you don't want to do that. No way, no how. You've got to get it controlled at least a couple weeks before your first hard-killing frost. So it all depends on where you're at and how soon that frost comes.
You want that plant actively growing so it translocates Roundup, if that's the product that'll work for you, down into that root system. Now let's just say it's Roundup Ready alfalfa, Brian, that's coming out there, or you suspect that it could be Roundup Ready alfalfa that's out in there.
Yep, it's tough. I don't really know what you're going to do other than I'd probably use Distinct. That'd be my preferred product, but that's not going to do a fantastic job on all the roots. You'll have a little bit next year.
Well, here's where we go. A lot of guys use 2,4-D, and they say, well, I use 2,4-D, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We find it to be very rate specific and also weather specific, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, so if you bump the rate on 2,4-D, well, if you're going to spend that kind of money, spend $9 on a full rate of Distinct. I mean, Distinct is really inexpensive for what it is. It's way better than 2,4-D. So there's no way I'm using 2,4-D. If my choice is, hey, dollar for dollar, I can go Distinct or 2,4-D.
Well, here's the other thing, Brian. It might be out in crop and it might just be a weed here or there. So let's talk about soybeans. You could use Extend soybeans, you could use Enlist soybeans, and you have either dicamba or 2,4-D as options. That would be my preference because none of the pre's do a real good job.
Nope, and Liberty could burn it down to the ground. If you've got corn, Status is the best way to go. In wheat, we'd probably suggest running with Husky, but you know what? Wide match isn't too bad either.
That's all time we have for our Weed Volunteer Alfalfa, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Do you feel like there's never enough time to get everything done before planting? The window for spring work is quick and unforgiving. Give yourself the upper hand with the ProTill High Performance High Speed Disc. More and more farmers agree the ProTill is the right tool for springfield conditions and heavy residue management. Zero maintenance bearings, independent disc technology, oversized pins and bushings allow the ProTill to handle whatever field or conditions you can throw at it. Degelman High Performance Equipment.
In 1949, Morton Buildings constructed our first machine storage building to establish our bond with the farming community. Since then, our relationship has grown and so have our product offerings. From the smallest specialized operation to the largest agricultural enterprise, we understand the needs of your business and continue to evolve to meet industry demands. Plus, when you build a Morton building, you're backed by the strongest warranty in the business. To learn more about the Morton Advantage, visit mortonbuildings.com.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the system that makes the difference. Because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
Tough, precise, efficient. Strip tillage with the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm. Learn more at soilwarrior.com/agphd.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
With the success of the Case IH Steiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. Because Case IH offered the first 5-axle design to give you more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction, all to help you be more productive. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
With all the cover crop going in this season as wheat comes off and prevent plant acres dry out, today's Iron Talk will discuss some of the attention to detail required to be successful. Avoiding fallow syndrome is one of the reasons that you may want to plant a cover crop right now. I agree, that is a risk. Picking the right cover crop or cover crop blend, though, is critical because you can see fallow syndrome following crops like radishes that don't support mycorrhizae fungi that help bring phosphorus into the roots. For that reason, we often recommend choosing a blend of cover crops to support the diverse populations of soil microbes and to serve multiple purposes. With blends, though, seeding can be a challenge as seed sizes and seeding rates may vary dramatically, and there are two solutions to this problem. First, you could seed the ground twice. Put the smaller seeds in the drill and seed the field, then come back with larger seeds in a second pass. A second solution could be to just get a multi-hopper air cart to go behind your drill so you could keep each of the cover crops in their own hoppers, ensuring an even seeding across the field. A new consideration in 2019 for cover crops is the fact that prevent plant acres could potentially be grazed or hayed after September 1st. Check with your local officials to see exactly what the complete rules are for your area, as it will definitely impact which cover crops you may consider. Yes, cover crops can be a big help to the soil and to future crops. We're big supporters of cover crops used after wheat harvest and on prevent plant acres. If there's not enough time to grow an actual crop that can provide you income, a cover crop is often the next best option to protect your soils and to feed soil microbes. Careful attention, though, is needed to spread the seed somewhat evenly to maximize benefits and eliminate potential problems. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to check out the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us on SiriusXM Channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central each weekday.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. Even though it may not be raining like it was today, we'll have a great Iron Talk, Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and much more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.